discuss the concept of state of nature. Hobbes, let's say 20 mark. Okay, so students, if you happen to get this is a very common question in Hobbes. They can ask you in a different way. State of nature is a state of war, or whatever quote is related to this. Ultimately you have to explain the state of nature. So today let us understand how to write this particular answer. Students, since I have already told you the approach to write answer, okay, the approach to write answer is IBC format, means intro, body and conclusion. Intro, body and conclusion. So students, when you write answer in PSIR optional, intro cannot be like the way you discuss about, I would say, the general studies. So for this particular topic of state of nature, let us try to understand how can we write a good answer. Okay, so means the question is about Hobbes state of nature. Already I have discussed a lot about the Hobbes state of nature, and I have already told you the concept, what do you mean by state of nature. So this is the model answer. What we will do, understand. Okay, you can briefly start. You can start an introduction with a quote also. There is no problem about it. You can start, the state of nature is a state of war of all against all, Hobbes. You can start the introduction with a quote. There is no problem. If you don't want to start an introduction with a quote, it's okay. You can simply write down that the Hobbes concept of state of nature is explained in the background of his intention to bring order in the society during 1500th century in England. Okay, always remember the introduction should be direct approach to what the question is asking for. Since the question is asking about state of nature, you should focus on what is exactly the state of nature and give a 1 to 2 line of brief. That you can do, or else you can also start with, according to Hobbes, you can write down in this way. Okay, you can write down in this way. According to Hobbes, the state of nature is a state of war of all against all. Then what can you do in the body part? You have to basically explain in a more better way. What can you explain? Look at this model answer. Since man is utilitarian, individualistic, okay, and pleasure seeking, the state of nature is a state of war of all against all. So the first statement, or the just after introduction, you can mention this particular point. After that, what you can do, you describe what exactly is the Hobbes talking about it. Hobbes mentions that, okay, the dilemma of the desires and the limited goods. He is talking about the dilemma between there is a unlimited desires and there is a limited goods. Yes, it's a good to write intro with a quote, no problem. Okay, you can write a quote, no problem. You can write with a quote. You can start with a normal introduction as a paragraph. That won't matter a lot. So that you explain that Hobbes is talking about the dilemma of unlimited desires and limited goods. Okay, unlimited desires and limited goods, and ultimately what happens? Man looks at other man as a source of insecurity. Okay, you can write down what is exactly, you have to explain the state of nature. So man is looking at another man as a source of insecurity. Means he thinks that if somebody is there, that probably the resources which are available will be divided. It is typically happens in our family member, isn't it? What happens, when you have multiple siblings, then definitely the resources available in the family is divided. Okay, so you can mention this particular point. Then other man can take the resources of pleasure from the man. Since state is absent, man has to depend on the self-help. Okay, since there is no state, because in the state of nature, basically there is no state, there is no law, there is no I would say that rules and regulations. So since there is no state, who will take care of the man? The man himself. So it is basically self-help. Hence man would like to acquire power to gain security. Ultimately in the state of nature, what is necessary is to establish themselves and to have the security, because men are insecure if there is another man. So how to become secure? In order to become secure, you have to have power. So since there is no state, man will always try to acquire more and more power. So act of one person will make others more insecure, because if one person is trying to accumulate more power, the other person will look at the person and say that, okay, you are taking so much of power, you are trying to control over the other people, so let me do the same thing. Okay, so that means act of one person will make others more insecure. Hence all will be in struggle for power. So everybody, ultimately what would happen, once single person have started to accumulate more power, everybody will start to struggle and start to have a fighting and quarrel among each other, that who will get the particular power. So thus the state of nature is a state of war of all against all. Okay, thus the state of nature is a state of war of all against all. Everybody is fighting with everyone, so there is no solution to it. So in the state of nature, there is no security of life, hence there is no scope for the good life. Okay, why? Because there is no security of life. How can there be security of life? Because everybody is hunger for power. Okay, one person is thinking about others that as an insecure person, so there is no security of life and there is no scope for good life. All right, so no scope for prosperity. The prosperity will only happen when the war stops. In the war there is no prosperity. So life is nasty, life is poor, life is solitary, brutish and very short. The state of nature is a very painful. Hence man is the state of nature, wants to come out of the painful. What does man want? Man doesn't want to stay in the state of nature. Although man gets a lot of liberty, the man doesn't want to stay within the state of nature, because it is very painful. Everybody is fighting with everyone. All right, so then man would establish an authority. What exactly? Man would establish an authority. Why authority is needed? So that the authority will take care of the problem and maintain order within the society. An authority which can bring law and order and punish those who take away the life and property of others. Okay, if somebody is doing some miscreant or criminal activity, then the authority will take necessary actions and punish the person who are taking out the life and property. So students, this is how you should write an answer related to state of nature. Then briefly what should write? Briefly you should write, so the Hobbes is next. What you can write? The Hobbes is proposing, after writing this one, so in order to establish an authority, okay, let me just write down the quick points only. In order to establish authority, Hobbes proposes the social contract. Okay, but do not explain the social contract, because the social contract is not the question. The question is about state of nature. If the question had been social contract, you explain the social contract in detail. So you have to explain the state of nature in detail. Social contract, as it is a part of the state of nature. Okay, so you should mention that the Hobbes is proposing, in order to establish an authority, Hobbes is proposing social contract, where he suggests everybody will give up their right to the authority except right to life. That much of information is needed for body. Once the body is completed, then what you should write in the conclusion? In conclusion, you should write the Hobbes concept of the state of nature is nothing but in a negative connotation, where every man are fighting with each other in order to acquire power. Hence, in order to restore the order and peaceful in the society, it is essential that man must come out of the natural state and surrender some of the rights to the authority. This is how you should write answer.